The New Orleans Saints are on the road to finish out their 2024 NFL season against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And at 5-12, the season hasn't gone the way that the team or its fans might have hoped, but yet there's still a chance to end on a high note here before the busy offseason begins. Can rookie quarterback Spencer Rattler make the most of his sixth and final start of the season? Or will Baker Mayfield and the 9-7 Tampa Bay Buccaneers fire the cannons on their way to their fourth consecutive NFC South title? It all comes down to the season finale in Tampa. Welcome in, everyone, to Saints Game Day Live here on NewOrleansSaints.com. I am your host today, Ross Jackson, host of the Locked On Saints podcast, as well as beat writer over at LouisianaSports.net, filling in for the wonderful Erin Summers, who's on Pelicans duty today because she is possibly the busiest person in show business. Grateful to be here with you on another Sunday. On today's pregame show, over the course of the next 15 minutes or so, we're going to break down everything you need to know about this New Orleans Saints and Tampa Bay Buccaneers matchup. We'll look at each side of the football. We'll get a one-on-one with Darren Rizzi. And, of course, we're going to lead it all off with the matchups that you need to know. And that's where we're going to turn things over to our good friend John DeShazer over in Tampa at Raymond James Stadium to tell us everything we need to know about the matchups to watch today. What you got, JD?
And in. That's the mantra for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here today at Raymond James Stadium, where they will take on the Saints in the regular season finale for Tampa Bay, the season finale for the Saints. If Tampa Bay wins, it will win its fourth consecutive NFC South division title. Obviously, the Saints don't want that to happen, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a team that is heading to the playoffs if they win this game. If they don't, they'll need some outside help from the Falcons to lose, and of course, no team wants to depend on outside help to get into the playoffs. Offensively for Tampa Bay, this is what you're looking for. A team that scores 30 a game, fourth most in the league, and they're led by quarterback Baker Mayfield, who's completing 72% of his passes for almost 4,300 yards, 39 touchdowns. Most seasons, those numbers would put him in the conversation for MVP or Offensive Player of the Year, but this year, there's Lamar Jackson and there's Josh Allen, so that probably won't happen. And Mayfield has been a bit loose with the football this season. He's got 15 interceptions, leads the league with 13 fumbles, but he's only lost 2 of those fumbles. He's been sacked 39 times. Keep an eye on the receiver Mike Evans, too, because he already holds the NFL record with 10 straight seasons of 1,000 yards receiving to open a career. He's 85 yards short of extending that to 11 years. He's got 11 touchdown catches, and in this matchup, Mike Evans will not have to deal with former Saints cornerback Marshawn Lattimore, with whom he has engaged in a few epic battles since 2017. The offensive balance comes from rookie running back Bucky Irving. He's got 1,033 rushing yards, 7 touchdowns. He'll test the Saints defense that allows 139 rushing yards a game. And oh, by the way, Tampa Bay, for the first time in franchise history, has 4,000 passing yards and 2,000 rushing yards in the same season. On defense, Tampa Bay will get a second look at Saints rookie quarterback Spencer Rattler, who made his first NFL start against the Bucs in Week 6 on October 13th. You know the Bucs, who have 44 sacks, have seen how pressure has reached Rattler and forced some errors. Now, nose tackle Vita Vea, all 6'4", 350 pounds of him, continues to anchor the middle of that Bucs defense. He's almost immovable, and he's got 6 sacks in addition to clogging up the run. That's linebacker Levante David, and he doesn't appear to be aging. He's 35, but he leads his team with 113 tackles. He's got 5.5 sacks and 3 forced fumbles. What the Saints won't have to contend with is safety Antoine Winfield, because both starting safeties for Tampa Bay are out of this game. So they'll depend a little bit more on the pass rush, and that's defensive lineman Kalijah Clancy. He's got 7.5 sacks, and Logan Hall with 5.5 sacks. Both have helped fortify the pass rush, what the Bucs have needed, because this team only has 7 interceptions this season. On special teams, you've got kicker Chase McLaughlin, who's made 28 of 30 field goal attempts, including 7 of 9 from 50-plus yards. So Tampa Bay won't be reluctant to take a long field goal try if needed. Sean Tucker has averaged 27 yards on 12 kickoff returns. Irving has chipped in with a 29-yard average on 6 returns. So there is explosiveness in the kick return game. The Bucs hope the mixture of all that leads to another division title, while the Saints hope to cancel Tampa Bay's celebration. That's it from here at Raymond James Stadium. Back to you in the studio, Ross.
Excellent stuff, JD. What a matchup this one proves to be, and it's always the case in the NFC South. And those Ray J games over at Raymond James Stadium can always get a little weird, as well as we've seen throughout these teams' history. Let's take a look at the New Orleans Saints offense before we hear from New Orleans Saints interim head coach Darren Rizzi here in just a moment. With the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense dealing with injuries in the secondary, you heard JD talk a little bit about the lack of takeaways, interceptions that secondary, that Bucs defense has reeled in so far this season. That looks like that might continue here up against the New Orleans Saints. They're going to be without three big names over in their secondary: safety Antoine Winfield Jr., cornerback Jamel Dean, and then, of course, Jordan Whitehead, the safety who was involved in an auto accident just yesterday. Obviously, we hope that everything is well with him. But with that secondary a little weakened, expect the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and head coach Todd Bowles to do what it is that they do the most, which is send pressure. This is the team that blitzes at the third highest rate in the NFL. And if you look across the line of scrimmage for the New Orleans Saints with rookie quarterback Spencer Rattler, there are 40 quarterbacks so far this year that have taken at least 200 dropbacks, as in just taking a snap, dropping back to pass, for instance. Spencer Rattler is highest on the list in terms of the amount of those dropbacks that have been under pressure with a whopping 42%. Not a great matchup when you're up against a team that loves to blitz and that does bring a lot of pressure like that Bucs defense. A big one to watch for the New Orleans Saints offense. Another big name to watch, and a down-home name that a lot of people know and love, running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the Baton Rouge native, former LSU Tiger. He's going to be called into action quite a bit in this game out of the backfield. You've got Kendre Miller, New Orleans Saints second-year running back, as well as star running back Alvin Kamara, both out with injury today. So expect Edwards-Helaire to get a big portion of the workload out of the backfield. Last week, he only got a couple of opportunities, but still averaged 4 yards per carry on the ground. Look for him to have a much bigger focus, or be a much bigger focus of the New Orleans Saints run game as well as passing game out of the backfield. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at what interim head coach Darren Rizzi has to say about this matchup. John DeShazier caught up with him to kind of get the lowdown on the regular season wrapping up for Darren Rizzi and more. So let's hear what Darren Rizzi has to say about this Tampa Bay New Orleans matchup.
Riz, what has the week of preparation been like? Obviously, we have the terrorist attack on New Year's Day, early New Year's morning. Just what has it been like preparation-wise for the team this week?
Yeah, it certainly hasn't been easy, but I think our players have really handled it extremely well. Very professional, very mature. We made sure to honor the victims and their families every day here at the start of the day, because we feel like it's obviously we're a huge part of this community. Very proud of the way our players have handled it, and so there's been a renewed focus, I think, this week, and hopefully we can give everybody some positive things here on Sunday and some positive things in the game.
What has this ride been like for you since November the 4th? You've been the interim coach. Obviously not the way you want to become coach, but a long process. And I don't know if it gave you more gray hairs or what. But what's the process been like for you?
I think there's definitely a couple extra grays in here for sure. But it's been a whirlwind. But I tell you what, the players in particular have made this whole experience for me just what it is, and that's been just great. It's kind of separate the wins and the losses and watch how everyone's responded. We obviously, we changed a lot of things, and to watch our guys just embrace everything we're doing has been great. This organization's been great to me, and I'm proud to work for it. And it's certainly been an interesting ride, to say the least.
Guy, we hadn't asked you about for a while. Rookie left tackle Taliesin Fuaga. Started every game as a rookie. Just what has his progress been like this season? Because it seems like he's had a really solid season.
Yeah, I think the fact that we haven't talked about him a lot is probably a good thing. A rookie left tackle in this league is a hard position to play. It's hard to play when you're not a rookie, much less, And so, I think he's a guy that's probably flown under the radar in a good way. He's really played well. He's one of those guys, when you grade the tape, you see the athleticism. You see a guy that's going to have a really bright future. And I'm really proud of him and how he's responding. We threw him there from day one, as you know, from following the team. and there really hasn't been a blip on the radar. A couple plays here or there, a couple penalties, but man, really, really solid season for him.
Now, he won't have to specifically match up against this guy, but Tampa's defensive line has Vita Vea, who's been around for a while, and he's been a force for a while. Just how do you contend and deal with a guy like that?
God, he's all over the film on everything they do. Gosh, they have him out there on field goal block as well and punt rush, and he's just a guy with a motor. And we know that's the first word that comes to mind when I think of him is motor. We got to slow him down a little bit. Certainly, we're going to be very, very aware of where he is on the field. And we have a plan for that, protection-wise and run game-wise. But you can see why this guy was a Pro Bowler. He's made a ton of plays. I got a lot of respect for him and his effort on every play.
What do you think about how the veteran players from this team have handled this season, whether it be DeMario Davis or Cam Jordan, Tyrann Mathieu, the veteran guys who had to lead the locker room?
And that's it, that they've been leaders. Their leadership's been outstanding. You hit on a lot of them. And whether it was our captains or even guys like Foster Moreau, who's not a captain, guys like that have just embraced everything we're doing. Like I said before, they've made this ride for me these last 8 or 9 weeks an enjoyable one, and they certainly made it a lot easier on me by their leadership.
All right. Thank you, Riz.
Appreciate it, JD.
Thanks very much, JD, and Coach Rizzi, who could be coaching his final game, or certainly is coaching his final game as the interim head coach. But what lies ahead for the future for Coach Rizzi is going to be a big talking point following this game. We'll have more on that in our post-game show, as well as, of course, taking a look at the rest of this game, what actually went down and everything as well. So we'll be breaking that all down for you after the matchup today. Here now, I want to focus on the New Orleans Saints defense, who face a tough task up against this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. Let's start with the most important player on the field for Tampa Bay. That's the quarterback, Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is on track right now to become just the third NFL quarterback in history to finish a season with 4,000 passing yards, 40 touchdowns, and completing more than 70% of his passes. If that stat line sounds familiar, it's because an old legend here in New Orleans, Drew Brees, back in 2011 became the first quarterback to do that. Aaron Rodgers followed up in 2020, and now Baker Mayfield has that opportunity to finish with those numbers on the season today. And in that process, he's going to have a pretty solid supporting staff around him. Looking at the run game here, Bucky Irving has been one of the best rookies in the NFL, especially over on the offensive side of the football, averaging 5.5 yards per carry so far this season. That means he's getting more than 5 yards every single time they turn around and hand him the football. He's leading the way right now with 1,033 rushing yards for the NFL's number 4 rushing offense in the league. That's Tampa's offense. So if you want to make sure you've got a good supporting staff for your quarterback, putting together a good run game is a way to do that. Bucky Irving has brought that to Tampa after years of pursuing that very run game. There's another record potentially hanging in the balance in this matchup as well. Wide receiver Mike Evans is just 85 receiving yards away from putting together his 11th consecutive 1,000-yard receiving season. If that sounds absurd, it's because it is. The only person to ever do that did it all the way back in 1996, and that was wide receiver Jerry Rice. You might have heard of him. Not bad company to find yourself in. And finally here, just looking at the Saints defense, how do they defend all that? Well, swarming to the ball is going to be a big part of it. Baker Mayfield, who we just highlighted, puts a lot of passes behind the line of scrimmage. In fact, he does it at the 4th highest rate in the NFL. But on the flip side, the Bucs are the second best team in getting yards after the catch this season. So that means that the New Orleans Saints will need to swarm to the football, gang tackle, and find a way to make sure that they're bringing ball carriers down at the catch point. So look for that to be a big focus in this matchup. You heard JD speak earlier a little bit about Blake Grupe, who right now is kicking 85.2% of his field goals through the uprights, 23 of 27. So don't expect the New Orleans Saints to shy away from going to him. But Chase McLaughlin over with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers sitting at 93.3%. So this could be a game that comes down to a close or short score situation. If that's the case, the field goal kickers stand to play a big role. And I don't want to talk special teams without mentioning J.T. Gray. J.T. Gray and Rico Payton, actually, the undrafted free agent rookie, both of them have been excellent in punt coverage. J.T. Gray should have been a Pro Bowler. I'll say it for you so that you don't have to. But he ends up not getting in there. We'll see what happens with the All-Pro situation. But absolutely a name to watch for New Orleans as a guy that could end up making a big impact in this matchup. As for your New Orleans Saints inactives, let's take a look at who will not be available for today's matchup. The Saints will not have have quarterback Derek Carr, who's dealing with a left hand injury, linebacker Willie Gay Jr. with a shoulder injury, couple of concussions keeping some guys out this week as well, linebacker Pete Werner, as well as running back Kendre Miller, and of course, as we discussed earlier, running back Alvin Kamara not available in this matchup either with a groin injury, and then a couple of rookies, Mason Tipton, the wide receiver, and then 6th-round draft pick Christian Boyd, defensive tackle, will be out for this game, will be inactive rather for this game as well. So expect the New Orleans Saints to turn to a lot of their young players here. Look at some of these names, right? With Derek Carr out, you're turning to Spencer Rattler, the rookie quarterback. With Willie Gay and Pete Werner out, you're looking at Nephi Sewell as well as Anthony Orji, a couple of guys that'll be up next to Demario Davis throughout this game. Without Alvin Kamara and Kendre Miller, you're looking at Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who has told me he wants to stay here in New Orleans. He's trying to convince New Orleans to keep him around. Could kind of make a little bit of a claim for himself today in Tampa. So lots of young talent to watch for this New Orleans Saints team, and of course a little bit of hometown flavor for you as well. Let's wrap it up as well, taking a look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are going to be without some of those key players over in their secondary. Big names that they won't have on the field, of course, include the ones that we mentioned earlier, Antoine Winfield, the safety, as well as Jordan Whitehead, the safety, and then Jamel Dean, the corner. So a lot to watch for this game. Before we send things off to Tampa here, I asked the New Orleans Saints if they would be willing to just give me a moment to share a personal message with my city of New Orleans, and they were kind enough to do that. So I want to start by saying thank you to the New Orleans Saints for giving me this opportunity. Look, New Orleans was victim to a horrific and vile display of hatred on New Year's Day, and I wanted to extend my condolences and well wishes to all those that were impacted, whether directly or indirectly, by this tragedy. Look, nothing can change the events of that day, unfortunately. However, as a community, we do control how it is that we choose to proceed. And the city of New Orleans is my home. I was born and raised here by a phenomenal mother, and here and in the surrounding areas as well. I consider myself a son of this city. And from it, I learned a few things: resilience, persistence, perseverance, but perhaps more importantly, love and power are two other things that I learned during my time here. And as a person who grew up both housed and unhoused in this city, has been a Hurricane Katrina survivor myself, I have watched this city get knocked down. I've watched this city get back up. I've watched this city punch hard, and I've watched this city love harder. And to me, those are some of the things that I have absolutely no doubt will happen here in New Orleans again. So please don't forget to get up, to punch hard, and to love harder. My name is Ross Jackson. Big thank you to all of you for giving me a moment of your time, and to the New Orleans Saints for allowing me a moment to address us all here in what has been a tumultuous week here in the city of New Orleans. Later on, we'll be back here after this New Orleans Saints and Tampa Bay game and recapping everything throughout that matchup. Sometimes things are bigger than football, and I know this New Orleans Saints team feels that way today. We'll be here to break it all down for you in our our post-game show following this matchup here on Saints Game Day Live.